Hello everyone. This is going to be a long form version, building out the form that is used in my recent pop-up modal video. This one's going to be a bit slower paced, but let's get to it. So here's the design I'm going for. When it comes to making this work on mobile in the way that I would want it to, then this area here with the testimonial doesn't quite fit. So that's going to get cut off. That's how I want to have it look once it's on mobile. So first thing I know I need is I need a parent that takes up the whole screen. I can see that. And I know that I'm going to want a transparent element sitting in between that black box and the form itself, which I can use so that if a user clicks out of bounds, they can still close the modal. And why don't we just start with that? So I can use Command K, type in div. I've got something here. This one I'm calling contact wrapper. And I want to use 100 VW on width. That's viewport width. And 100 DVH on height. That's viewport height, but dynamic. And what that means is it takes account for the toolbars at the bottom of a mobile browser. So for sure this doesn't scroll. Then I want to give this a background color, black. And then I would want this available no matter where the user is scrolled to. So that will come from using position fixed. And we'll give it a z-index of 10. That gets it over top of the nav bar. You will have to kind of keep track of what z-indexes you use. And then that's probably good for now. Let's bring in another div. This one will be that invisible box. So this one I'm calling contact underlay. And then if I use percentage units here, it's going to pull off of the size of the contact wrapper, so I don't need to use viewport units here. 100% works fine. And then this one I want to be absolute. I don't want it finding, well, basically I want this to exist underneath of the form, and the form I'm going to use flex-based centering on the contact wrapper level. So let's go z-index 10 here as well. And I guess I just mentioned another thing I want to do here, which is I want to change my display to flex. Row is fine. We only have the one parent element. And then, yeah, just selected center on the X, center on the Y. And then I'm going to bring another div in. We see it's dead center. That is going to become this outermost box. So why don't I grab a color code off of this? And then I'm setting it to 1 rem of padding. And then I want this to be a flex row as well. So it's going to be this outer box first, then this one with the photo. And if I use flex, then I have control over the gap. So not only can I get this padding, but I can get an even space in between these, both set at the parent. So I don't have to use any margin at all. So let's go flex, direction row, and this will start left. And yeah, if we use stretch, then however large the contents of this form are, it's going to fill that empty space on this element if we use stretch on our y-axis. So let's keep that as is, but let's set this to the same as our padding, 1 rem. And I think that's all we will do for now, except that I should call this something. Okay. So then I've got a div and a form block. What do I want to style first? Let's do the form. I hold Option and drag. That allows me to duplicate an element on screen. I'm blanking over what type of element I want here. It's not the same, a text area versus an input. Excellent. All right, let's give this a class of form name tag. Actually, I'm just going to go to my body level, set my text color to white. That'll change everything down the chain. Only one thing I want to change is I don't want that bold. Although I'm actually using gray here. So let me grab that color code. That's what I want. Change the classes on all of those, and then we want a class here. I'm just going to call input for now. Then these, I know I have a black background of black, but it has an opacity of something like 20%. And then for our border, I'm using white at, I believe, 10%. And then my border radius, 0.5 rem. That looks more like this. This submit button, I have a class called action button already. Oops, that's not right. And I'm just going to get rid of see this getting a little bit weird. Going to create a combo class here, give this a little bit more height. set the minimum height to, let's try 200 pixels. And I'm just going to do that to center our button in. And this is pretty good. I'm just going to call this form wrapper. And then this should have padding of something like 2 rem. And then let me just go and grab this color code for our background. And then I believe, just looking at this, I do want to use a little bit of margin here. Then this form wrapper, I'll leave the border radius until a bit later, but I do know that this is going to be the same as what I did earlier, where this was 10% opacity white. All right. Well, actually, I guess I've got the logo and I've got that little bit of a paragraph there as well. So I can bring my logo in here. I actually got one on the nav bar. I'm just going to use the same height. As I'm using this, I just noticed that as I'm clicking around, nothing is responding on screen, and I bet I know what's going on there. That is going to be that this contact container will need the position to be set to relative so that we have z-index, and then we just need to set that higher than our contact underlay. And now we'll be able to click on everything. That's better. That'll also be necessary for the animations as well. So let's set our height to 40 pixels. And let's bring a paragraph in. Copy this. And then I want this paragraph just to have a max width of the same as what I used on these inputs, 350 pixels. And I'm just holding Option. That's strange. What's going on here? Probably just need a class. Wonderful. Let's see how that margin looks. All right, I think we've got that ready. Why don't we go ahead, just go to our outer element, the contact wrapper. And this is also going to have that exact same, mostly transparent white border. So we can add that. And then why don't we add our border radius here? I believe what I wanted was 1.5 rem on the parent and 1 rem on these. Yeah, that looks right. Excellent. So now we can add another div that did not go at all in the right spot. Just close all of that. That's where it's going. And you can see that because we set on this parent element, because we set that to flex and because we set it to stretch our elements on the y-axis, that this is already occupying the full height. But how about we give this some width? Something like that. I'm going to call this testimonial wrapper. And first thing I could do, how about we set the border radius to 1 rem to match our other side. And then we'll give this a border of that same 10% white. Gotta quickly upload the photo that we're using. But we're not going to drag this in as just a photo. Instead, we'll use this as a background image. So let's set it to cover on the size. Let's just set it to center. Yeah, everything looks good. And then this element, we're also going to use flex here, but this one is going to be a column. If we look at our design, we have the X on top, and then all of this could be contained in its own div. And then we just want to use space between so that it pushes that box to the bottom and it leaves our exit button on the top. So we have it as flex column. On the x-axis, we're going to use sure, let's keep it as stretch. And then on our y, we're going to go space between. And then I already know that we're going to want some padding. So let's match our other element. That way everything's going to stay nice and grid-like by using 2 rem of padding. And I'm putting a paragraph in here, and I'm just going to delete everything out of that and click away, and then reselect it. And then I'm using the Udesly icon pack. Udesly? Don't know. But I'm using material icons. Search for close. Good, that's there. And let's make a class called icon. And for this, we're just going to set this height to 0. This is a little bit big. I think 1.5 would suit it a little better. Then I'm going to give this a combo class that I'm going to call right. And then I will justify that to the right. Now we have our exit button. Then let's bring another div in here, and we see that it's automatically going to the bottom, just like we want. And that's going to contain everything in here. And so why don't we just copy this? I'm sure we'll also want to contain all of those stars in their own little box. So now I can paste in that X. But I'll just remove that justify right combo class. Let's relaunch this icon pack and then search for star. Okay, get rid of the X. And let's see if we can control this one layer up. Let's give this a combo class of orange. Grab my color code. Oops. Okay, perfect, we can. Then I just want to double check. Okay. Ah, actually there's something right there. Let's change the height and the width to 1.5. That's a little better. Then I'm just going to copy this, paste it 5 times. Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted. So we can just switch this to flex, flex row. And then one thing that I see right there is that we have a little bit of default margin. That's just going to mess up our layout, so let's get rid of that. So we've got our stars. Yeah, I'm not going to bother naming these. Actually, this one I will. Okay, and then we need a paragraph. Copy this, paste that in. Excellent. And then we'll use a heading. We'll use an H6, and then I want to select all H6. I'm going to move this up to 14 pixels. And if I go 1 dash, what does that look like? Not quite right. Let's go 1.2. And that does look right. So it's already bold. Excellent. Just want to double check my design here really quick. I have this set to 36. I have that set to 36. Okay, it should match. Then I also don't want that default margin here either. Let me just select all paragraphs. Get rid of the default margin. Okay, that is good. Now I can actually set, instead of using margin in between these, let's go to testimonial, not wrapper, testimonial container. And then if I set this to a flex column, which we could just leave these settings here. Now we can space all of our elements using gap, which I know I used 15 pixels up here, so maybe I'll just use that instead. Yeah. Then one other thing, I am going to make it so that, let's add a combo class to our icon. I'm going to call this clickable. Then if I come down to the bottom, we've got cursor, and let's set this to pointer. So then if we go to preview and we hover, ooh. Actually, I know what it is. It's that I'm screen recording. And when I'm screen recording, I don't get cursor changes. So that's actually normal. It'll almost certainly work for you. Perfect. Well, we've got the design that we want all built out inside of Webflow. Minus, actually, you know what? These both need to have, these need a little shadow on them. So let's go to box shadow and let's set the Y offset to 5 and let's set the blur maybe to like 15. And it's pretty good. Yeah, let's do that. And we'll do the same over here. There we go. Now we're all done. And then the only issue is if we went into mobile, yeah, that doesn't quite work. So what my plan is, I'm just going to cut out this whole area here. I'm going to need my own exit button there. And I'm going to make this outermost wrapper, that's going to be invisible. So I'm just going to have this section here. And I'm going to do that starting at the tablet level. So let's go testimonial wrapper and we'll set this to display none. Already got something there. Then we're going to take our padding that is on that element and shrink it down. And just so that we don't get any kind of odd overlap, let's go to our opacity. Oh, I guess we can't do that, yeah. Well, in that case, we'll set the background to transparent. And we'll set our border to style none. And then for shorts, just this. Then let's go ahead and grab this icon. And that will be in the form wrapper. So then I see a change I want to make. So I'm going to stick that logo image inside of a div. Then I'm also going to paste in that exit icon. And oops, let's set this to flex. flex row, and on the y-axis we'll go top, and then we'll go space between on the x-axis, which mostly gets us where we want to be. But if we hop back up to our desktop, we see that we're not quite there. So let's give this yet again another combo class. And let's set this to display none on desktop. And then when we come down to tablet, let's find that. And this is going to be display block. So now it's not there on desktop. It is there on mobile. Okay, so that looks pretty good on tablet and on phone. And one thing you maybe would have to do, but I'm not going to go through the whole process, is you would want to actually publish this, open it up on a mobile device, and then right off the bat, I'm sure you would need to set this black overlay element. Instead of having it be 100% of the dynamic viewport height as the height, I would set that as the minimum height. And that would allow it to grow to fit the content, which is almost certainly going to overflow the screen. But as far as width goes, this is where we want to be. And then I'm sure we're going to see some issues once we get into mobile. Yeah, we do. So first thing I'm going to do is, so we have our form wrapper here. First thing we can do is we can shrink the padding here. So how about we set it to 1 rem instead? And then these are just going to have to be a bit less wide, but we could probably use a viewport unit to get this just a little bit more adaptable. So let's try 85 VW. Okay, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Oops, 5 VW. I'm just gonna have to set that for all of these elements that are using it. Oh, that one might not be. Okay. I will say almost nobody is going to use a device that has that breakpoint. So even though it looks a little bit, not the best, it's okay. This is going to be an iPhone SE. That's almost certainly going to be the smallest size anyone is actually using. And we see that we do have a little bit of space between the edge of the viewport and this contact form. And then we've got some nice spacing inside. So this, there's absolutely nothing wrong with. And from that, we have a beautiful looking pop-up ready to be animated that scales to different size devices just fine. All right, enjoy your next video.